Morning.
There you go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Board of Alders Finance Committee. I will begin by reading the formal notice. Aldermanic notice. The Finance Committee of the New Haven Board of Alders will hold a public hearing on Thursday. Well, that's a typo, isn't it? This is not a public hearing. We'll meet on Thursday, May 16, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Alders Chamber, 165 Church Street, New Haven, to deliberate and act on the following items for the city budget for fiscal year 2024-25 and other budgetary items. 1. OR 2024-0009. Appropriating ordinance number 1, an ordinance making appropriations for operating City of New Haven departments for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. 2. OR 2024-0010. Tax levy and revenue appropriating ordinance number 2, an ordinance making tax levy and revenue assumptions for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. 3. OR 2024-0011. Appropriating ordinance number 3, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds fiscal year 2024-2025. 4. OR 2024-0012. Appropriating ordinance number 4, an ordinance authorizing issuance of general obligation tax anticipation notes and or general obligation grant anticipation notes fiscal year 2025. Excuse me. 5. OR 2024-0013. An ordinance amendment to section 17-0-201 of the General Code of Ordinances authorizing additions and changes in permits, licenses, and user fees for the fiscal year 2024-2025. 6. LM 2024-0178. Order of the New Haven Board of Alders reallocating $11.5 million from previously approved American Rescue Plan projects for the purpose of supplementing funding for eligible general fund fiscal year 2024-2025 budget items. Excuse me. 7. LM 2024-0177. Order approving the 2024-25 Ollie Memorial Golf Course Enterprise Fund budget. 8. LM 2024-0180. Order approving the 2024-25 Ralph Walker Skating Rink Enterprise Fund budget. 9. LM 2024-0186. Order approving the 2024-25 East Rock Park Communications Tower Enterprise Fund budget. 10. LM 2024-0187. Order approving the 2024-25 Lighthouse Carousel Enterprise Fund budget. 11. LM 2024-0157. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Chapel West Special Services District fiscal year 2024-2025. 12. LM 2024-0158. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Grand Avenue Special Services District fiscal year 2024-25. 13. LM 2024-0159. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Town Green Special Services District fiscal year 2024-2025. 14. LM 2024-0160. Order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the BoA Avenue Special Services District fiscal year 2024 2025. These items are on file and available for public inspection in the Office of Legislative Services, 165 Church Street. Per order, the Honorable Adam Marchand, Chair. Attest, Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need disability-related accommodation, please call 3 business days in advance at 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY. Public comment testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavencity.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting, although public hearing is closed on these items. Okay, so we will now have introductions of committee members, starting to my right.
Richard Perla, Ward 27.
Rosa Santana, Ward 13.
Sal Nicola, Ward 18.
Adam Marchand, Ward 25.
Sal Punzo, Ward 17.
Wanda Smith, Ward 30.
Anna Festa, Ward 10. Taisha Walker Myers, Ward 23.
Thank you, colleagues. I would also like to recognize Alder Amy Marks from Ward 26, who is in the audience with us. I expect more of our colleagues to arrive shortly. We'll certainly introduce them when they arrive. All right, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. This is when the committee actually takes up the issue of the budget and makes amendments, discusses amendments, and decides to send some amended version of the mayor's proposed budget to the full board of alders for a first and second reading. Thank you, sir. The second reading for these items will be at the special meeting on the budget on Tuesday, May 28th. Let me say a few words about how we're going to proceed this evening, just so that everybody understands what we're doing and how we're going to do it. We're going to move a little bit out of order in terms of what was listed in our agenda. We will dispense with the enterprise fund items first, together as a group. And then we'll deal with the special services district items together as a group. And then once those 8 items have been dispensed with, we'll then move on to the general fund and capital fund budget and all the related items. And let me just pause to recognize our colleagues, Alder Hamilton and Alder Hurt, who have joined us. So, as I was saying, the way we'll proceed tonight is we'll deal with those 8 items. They're all orders. We're going to move them in 2 groups of 4. We'll dispense with those items. And then once that happens, we will move to all of the budget-related items. And those are items 1 through 6. The ordinances, and also the order in relation to the ARPA reallocations. We're going to move them together because there's a technical amendment that's been requested by the administration that touches upon many of those items. It's just simpler for us to deliberate on all of those related items together so that when we go through that technical amendment, we don't have to split it into its parts. We can just deal with it all at one go. After I will introduce that technical amendment and explain it, we'll discuss it, and then once that technical amendment, which contains corrections that the administration is requesting that we make, addressing a few omissions, maybe a new thing here or there. After we're done with that technical amendment, then the table will be reset for us. And that item, as amended, will be what we discuss. We will then have amendments from committee members. Once we get through all the amendments from committee members, then we'll discuss the items as amended. I'm giving the specific instruction because colleagues will likely have things that they want to say about the budget overall, which is good, but we should save those comments for after the amendments are completed. When we are moving amendments, colleagues will keep their comments to the amendments themselves and what's in the amendment. Once we get through whatever amendments come forward, and it's clear that there's no more amendments coming forward, then we'll discuss the items as amended, And that's when colleagues can speak more broadly on the overall budget and how they think about it and whether or not they plan to vote in favor of what we have put forward. So that is the way we shall proceed. One more thing before we get started is that after we dispense with the enterprise funds and the special services districts, my vice chair and I will switch hats. He will take over the running of the meeting, and I'll be making a bunch of motions and explaining what those motions are. So don't be too surprised when that happens. So how about that for announcements? One more thing before we proceed. I want to explain the papers that are in front of you so that colleagues know what they are. The stapled packet, of course, was prepared by Don Hayden, our fiscal analyst, and it contains the actual ordinances and orders that are in the agenda tonight, right? Those are the items in ordinance and order form that came to us, and that's listed on the agenda. That's the stapled packet. But you also received a paper-clipped set of papers, starting with this big old 11 by 17 beauty. That is a spreadsheet that summarizes an amendment that I shall offer after the technical amendments. So that is what that is. Then after that, you see an 8.5 by 14 document that's front back that says Finance Committee Technical Amendment. It should actually say Finance Committee Amendment without the word technical in it. This is just another summary of the same information that's on that 11 by 17 piece of paper. But Mr. Gormany very nicely has actually indicated what effect those changes would have on the mill rate and on the overall size of the budget. So those, that 2-page document, that's 8.5 by 14, that's actually the same thing as the 11 by 17. Then you'll see a 4-page document that's 8.5 by 14. The title's blue. And it said City of New Haven fiscal year 2024-2025 technical amendment. That is the actual changes that are requested by the administration in the form of this technical amendment, okay? So when we get to those items, these are the sheets of paper that will tell you what is in them. But I will also go through them, okay? So that's an explanation of the papers that we have. Having said all that, do I hear a motion? Alder DeCoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move items 7, 8, 9, and 10 favorable.
Second.
Items 7, 8, 9, 10 have been moved favorable. It's been second. Discussion. Alder DeCoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These enterprise funds are a normal procedure in our budget. It's following protocol to make sure that we continue to keep these enterprises funded correctly and moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion on the enterprise fund budgets, the 4 orders that have been moved favorably. Any further discussion on these 4 items? Seeing none, all in favor of a favorable recommendation of these items, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Alder DeCoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move item 11, 12, 13, and 14 favorable.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Alder DeCoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These special fund districts are a vital vehicle for those communities, and this is a positive thing for what these special districts do for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder DeCoe. Further discussion of these 4 orders relating to the 4 special services districts and the tax levies that are thereby approved. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. I am now turning the gavel over to Alder DeCoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any motions at this time? Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move items 1 through 6 Favorable.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. All for?
Any discussion?
I'm sorry. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move a technical amendment.
Second.
Okay, now that it's been seconded, discussion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So this is a technical amendment that I move on behalf of the administration. It contains various corrections and insertions for items that were mistakenly omitted and perhaps a new item or two. I would like to describe it for colleagues now, and I call their attention, please, to the 4-page document with the blue title, City of New Haven Fiscal Year 24-25 Technical Amendment. Oh, well, that's because it was the wrong one.
Oh, there it is. I got the wrong- Okay, now we got it.
I made paints to print these in color
Okay, I got
so
it.
that we would all have the same color code and everything.
There we go. Now I got it. My fault.
That's okay. So this is, it's maybe not as much as it looks like, but it's still plenty. So let's go through it. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. The first column just lays out the number of the item. The next column lists the city agency. The next talks about job title. The next column says the original allocation in the items that were sent to us on March 1st. The next column says technical amendment, so that's the corrected amount. Net budget change will show the difference between the original amount and the changed amount. If it's in black font, then that's an increase. If it's in parentheses with red font, then that means it's a decrease. And then the last column, which is the one farthest to the right, gives a description of the change. So you can see that the first one pertains to the IT director position. The 3% raise intended for that position was not included when the position was put in the budget, and that needs to be included, which raises the cost of the position. The next item shows a deputy director of operations item that was budgeted at $6,800 above the actual cost. The next several items are in the accounting department. That's 4 items. There was a labor dispute around classification that was resolved, and it had implications for the budgeted amount for those items. Tax office, same thing. Community resilience, same thing. Right? Anytime there's a grievance or a labor dispute that has a resolution that includes a change in the amount of the position, it needs to be accurately reflected in the budget, and that's what these items do. The next one is a position in Community Services Administration. This is a title change from data entry receptionist clerk to administrative assistant, and it's based on state labor reclassification and a memorandum of understanding between the city and the union. This position was supposed to be part of a reclass once the person vacated the position. And so once the person vacated, it was reclassed at just over $1,000 more. The next several, let's say the next 4 items have to do with budgeted positions when that were higher than what the newly hired person is earning, right? Oftentimes budgeted positions are budgeted at a higher rank, and if you hire someone who's quite new, you might offer them a beginning rate that's lower than the budgeted. And so when that happens, the budget needs to be corrected to reflect that. I would like to pause for a moment.
Yes, I would, let's acknowledge that Alderman Morrison has arrived.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Police services, they are zeroing out the part-time account. Item 17 is the building department. So, as you can see in the explanation, due to a formula area means that when they put these numbers in a spreadsheet and they build in formulas in the spreadsheet that add things up, if there's a problem with the spreadsheet formula, the addition doesn't quite work right. So even though the position is listed the same amount, it was not actually added in the subtotal for that grouping of positions. And so you have to make sure that all the numbers add up correctly. And so that $76,507 needs to be added in because to just make up for a arithmetic problem. Page 2. We heard in the budget workshop from the Director of Public Health that the intention was to create 3 additional sanitarian/senior sanitarian positions. They were not in the budget, and so they are proposed to be added through this amendment. And they're budgeted at $70,725. Page 3. Public health. It's a title change with no budget implications. Here they're changing the title of senior sanitarian to a title sanitarian/senior sanitarian. We heard about this earlier in the year. The public health department has told us that posting the positions, having them budgeted as higher level positions only means that's how they have to be posted. And there are not enough qualified candidates to apply for a higher level position with higher level requirements. So by putting in the budget as sanitarian/senior sanitarian, it could be posted either way. And if it's posted in the lower position, then people with lower level of experience or qualifications could apply, and it broadens the applicant pool. And that's what this does as well. 22A, Public Works. It's a title change. It does have some budget implications. And it's a title change for a group of positions. It changes the title to Labor Equipment Operator 1 through 3. The purpose of this change is to ensure the city is following a memorandum of understanding attached to the to this Department of Public Works. And what it means is when you post the position labor/equipment operator 1 to 3, it means that people who apply for that, qualify, get the job, they might be promoted according to a scheme that was the end result of the negotiated agreement between the union and management for that department. And so when you create the possibility of those kind of pathways of promotion, it has budget implications, and that's what this change would deal with. 22B, the building department, they're proposing, this one has 0 fiscal impact. It's a proposal to change the title from zoning officer to building and zoning inspector so that the position has a closer match to the other positions within the department. So the sum total of all of those changes, 1 through 22B, is in addition of $260,307 to the general fund. Do you have a point of clarification, Mr.?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a point of inquiry. I've noticed, and I apologize for noticing it just now, that OLS is not included in the technical amendment.
Office of Legislative Services? Yeah, I'm not aware that there was an intention to include OLS in the.
It was not the original, it never got into our book originally. So there was supposed to be a technical amendment for OLS.
Okay. So we'll have to debate this, and then if there needs to be one, we'll have to huddle with staff to make sure that it gets moved. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If that's okay with
Yeah,
you,
that's
Mr.
right.
Vice Chair. All right, so the total of all of those is $260,307. next group are general fund non-personnel changes, items 23 through 25. Legal services in Corporation Counsel, no, this is labor legal services. They're proposing to add $25,000 to that budget line. I would just call my colleagues' attention to the votes we had recently to increase legal service agreements limitations for various contracts with various law firms. And so it seems prudent to budget for more expenditure rather than less, which is what's proposed here. Legal services is proposed to be increased from $0 to $50,000. On the next line, this is for outside counsel for HR related matters. And then expenditure savings. They're increasing the projected expenditure savings. And you might ask, what is expenditure savings? So if colleagues recall in those months when the projections look dark and dreary, and we talked to Mr. Gormany about what are you going to do, and he talks about various austerity measures and spending controls that his administration places on the city government. This budget line is a place to capture what the anticipated savings of those measures would be. And so it's hard baked into the budget, just like vacancy savings are a line item that anticipates and projects for what savings we might have for a number of positions that are vacant for some or all of the fiscal year. This one is for anticipated measures that the administration may take to limit expenditures in non-personnel matters. And so the administration is asking to increase that by $110,807. The net effect of these three items, 23 through 25, is a reduction of $35,307. So finally, page 4. General fund revenue changes. These are revenue. Items 26 through 28. They are increasing the projected amount collected from health services fees. These are fees that apply, that our health department would charge for various kinds of inspections, from food carts to the new inspections of hair salons and nail salons and such. There's a variety of different things where fees are charged for inspections that our health department does. Controllers miscellaneous, $75,000 there. And interest income, they're increasing the proportion of interest income by $100,000. When you add those up, it's $225,000 additional money in the budget. And so the general fund net budget change, as you can see, is 0, right? It's $225 being increased in expenditure and $225,000 increased in revenue. So it has a net fiscal impact of 0, but as you can see, it does change the bottom line number for the budget from $680,376,770 to $680,601,770, which is quite a mouthful. So that's the net fiscal impact of all the changes contained in this proposed technical amendment. Finally, there are some proposed changes or corrections to the license, permit, and fees, which is also before us this evening. These are items 29 through 31. Commercial waste and recycling, receptacles by size annually. This is no fiscal impact. They're just, the ordinance cut off the full description of this fee, and so the red text there is putting in the words that got cut off, so that there's an accurate and full description of what the service is for which there's a fee. Same goes for the next 2 items, right? So there's no net fiscal impact for these amendments. It's just making sure that the ordinance itself has a complete and accurate description of what the full service is.
1 second. I just want to acknowledge that Sarah Miller has from Ward 14 is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder DeFola.
Oh, excuse me, Alder Caroline Smith is here too.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. That completes my description of the technical amendment requested by the administration, which I have moved and which I have just gone through. I think it makes sense to make these corrections, and I encourage and ask colleagues to vote yes on this motion. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Alder Besta?
Just a point of order. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair. Regarding the state budget has passed. When would we see those changes in our budget if they apply? For example, my understanding is that the state has actually allotted additional funding to the city. So I'm just wondering, would we see that in the technical amendment? Or do we know even the amount that we're getting? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
We don't have it in this, so it's not part of the discussion of this. We would have to find out from city staff between now and the second reading. So it won't be dealt with tonight because we don't have that information.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? On these amendment, technical amendments? Okay, seeing none on the technical amendment, vote for. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nay? Abstention? Okay, the technical amendment. is passed. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move an additional amendment.
Second.
They moved the second discussion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So now I'm moving an amendment that I am proposing based on discussions I've had with members of this committee, with members of leadership. And I hope that it captures a lot of common ground and a lot of consensus. And I think the simplest way to describe it is to refer colleagues to this large 11-inch by 17-inch piece of paper. I've made it a big font. I know it's helpful for me. And the amendment goes like this. What you see to the right of the sheet is a listing of all the new positions in this budget. It's on page 2-270 something in our big budget book, right? And so it's all the new positions in the budget, right? And it includes the department, the job title, the group, which is what I call it, but it could be the bargaining unit, right? EM is executive management, et cetera, the salary, which is the full annual budgeted salary amount for that position. And then the next column, which is red and green, says positions eliminated, and then in green or offset. So I'm going to explain that part as I go from top to bottom. And then the last column to the right says savings. And that's the amount of money that is saved by not doing the things that I'm proposing we not do. Okay? So let's start at the top. As colleagues recall, the administration has proposed to create multiple positions in the Parks Department, right? This amendment would eliminate some of those new positions. Not all of them, but some of them. It would eliminate 4 of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 10. It would keep 10, but it would eliminate 4. So which are the 4 that this amendment would eliminate? The Deputy Director of Administration and Planning with an annual salary of $123,151. And the 3 Park District Manager positions, each budgeted at $83,316. Let's skip over the green part for a moment. I'll explain that at the end. The next 4 positions are for the fire services. Captain, and lieutenant. These are positions that the administration is required to request each year as part of a memorandum of understanding. We are taking them out. The captains are budgeted at $106,131 per year, and the lieutenant position is budgeted at $95,550. Yes. The next position is from Public Works. It's the Deputy Director of Operations. This amendment would take that out at a budgeted amount of $121,151. The next three positions that this amendment would eliminate, these are new proposed positions that we wouldn't create after all. They're all coming from TTMP, and if you recall, Transportation, Traffic, and Parking proposed numerous positions. And we decided to keep some of them. The ones that have people walking around putting parking tickets, one is a full-time, one is a part-time, we decided to keep those. Why? Because they're revenue generating positions and we need to boot some of them. We also decided to keep two of the professional level positions that are required for the implementation of the automated enforcement technology. All the others we took out, and that is the Manager of Systems and Operations, the Traffic Safety Enforcement Officer, and the Program Coordinator. Finally, let me get to that portion of this column that's green, right? It's shaded green, and it's right next to the 4 office uniformed positions in the police department. The lieutenant, the 2 sergeant positions, and the detective position. This amendment keeps those positions, but it covers their costs by taking 5 vacant patrol officer positions and reducing those 5 to $1 each. And what does that mean? Well, it means that they're still in the budget, but they're not funded fully for this next fiscal year. And why would we do that? Well, because we know darn well that with the huge number of vacancies that we have, even if we had the best year ever in recruitment and retention, those 5 positions would not be filled. There is simply no way, even with the best ever recruitment, that all of the vacant officer positions will be filled, because they just won't. And so in order to pay for these mid-level promotional opportunities, managerial or supervisory roles, we said, let's bring those 5 officer positions down to $1 each. If the city has the best ever year of recruiting and they say, hey, look, we want to fund those positions because we think we might be able to fill them, they could come back to us either next year or even mid-year if that's the case. But we haven't seen that at all. The rate of filling these vacant positions is such that there's going to be literally dozens of vacant positions that will stay vacant for the rest of this fiscal year in that department. That's not what we want, but it is what is likely to be. So we took those 5 positions and we brought them down to $1 each. That saves $390,255, which more than pays for the 4 kind of mid-level positions that the department wishes to create. And so when you add up all those numbers in that far right column, it comes to $1,495,605 of expenditures that we are taking out of the budget. So you might ask, well, what are you proposing to do with that? So now let's go to the sheets that Mr. Barney prepared. But if you look at page 2, this is what we propose to do with it. As you can see, the size of our general fund budget, now that it has been amended by the technical amendment, is $680,601,770. So when you move $1,497,605 from that, it brings it down to $104,165. Are you grabbing some sheets to make copies? Please go ahead and do it. So that is a nearly $1.5 million reduction in the general fund budget from what was proposed and then tweaked with the technical amendment. And its effect on the mill rate is to bring it down 0.18 mils, right? So the mayor's proposed budget had a mill rate of 38.68 mils. With this amendment, which reduces the expenditure, that mill rate can be brought down to 38.5. So that is the amendment that I'm proposing. All the changes that are contained therein. I think I would recommend that colleagues vote favorably on the amendment. Mainly because I think we need to show a little bit more restraint. Anytime that a new position is created, it's not created just for next fiscal year, it's created for many, many, many fiscal years to come. And it builds the baseline of our budget. And so I think we're in a position to say yes to many of these requests, but not in a position to say yes to all of them. I think we put a lot of thought and a lot of discussion among colleagues on this committee about the rationale for these things. And I think it makes sense for us to support the amendment and to make these changes. And I see that our vice chair had to excuse himself, so now I have to switch hats and see if there are questions from committee members. Questions or comments on this amendment? Alder Ferraro Santo.
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out where this 197,605, this total doesn't total it 1,495,605. So what are you taking, what is the difference? Is it a typo error?
Alder,
I'm on the big page.
are you on the big page?
It says the total is 1,495,605.
Yes.
However, the net change on page 2 is 1,497,605. So where's that number coming from?
That's a great question. There's a $2,000 difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a scheduler's error, or we will have to check into that and see if the numbers that I have here add up.
I mean, they could have been typed
It could, it
what
could.
you want. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you very much. I know that I crunched the numbers and so I'm going with my spreadsheet. But we'll reconcile that. $2,000 discrepancy between this document and mine.
Yeah, it just caught my attention.
Thank you for pointing that out. We'll get to the bottom of that. Comments or questions on the amendment that's before us? Alder Honda Smith.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make an amendment.
An amendment to the amendment?
Yes.
You could do that, or you could also move it as a separate amendment after this is over.
Okay, I'll do that.
That might be easier and cleaner to do.
Okay, thank you.
That would be great. Alder Furlong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support this amendment. We've heard a lot from city departments. We've heard a lot from our constituents and residents about what we need, what we don't need. We have really done a lot of chopping in this amendment, and I think that slow and steady growth is important so that we can sustain the services that our residents need and what we've grown accustomed to. Even though we're only saving 0.18 from the mill rate, I'm pleased to see that we were able to add positions and still lower that mill rate just a little bit. So once again, I am in support of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? Festa?
Just I guess a point of clarification, because we missed a little bit of that, that's the big sheet. Just the last item. And 32 and 33 were not reviewed during the discussion. Well, okay, I take that back. They weren't because they weren't eliminated or removed from the list.
Correct.
So
Okay. Anyone else on this? Anyone else?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm in support of, the item as amended, especially with the police department. Having a lieutenant, two sergeants, and a detective, a little more leadership, for the department, which will, bolster, their capacity to run, the department. So I'm in favor of the, item as amended, and I ask colleagues to support the item also. Thank you.
Clarification, are you in favor of the amendment?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
That's what I just said. Sorry.
All right, you got it, you got it.
Anyone else on this amendment? Anyone? I just like to say I'm in favor of this amendment, we're moving in the right direction. Services that are needed and helping the mill rate go down a little, so I'm in favor of this. Anyone else before I call the vote? All in favor? Nay?
Nay.
Nay. What's the nay? Two nays, okay. Any abstention? No, okay, the item has passed as amended. The amendment has passed, yeah, the amendment has passed. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Who were the nay votes? Okay, thank you.
We'll discuss that on this one. Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I'm moving an additional amendment.
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and I was just handed a sheet of paper by our intrepid Office of Legislative Services staff in response to the issue that Alder Furlow raised earlier, which is requested corrections to the OLS budget. And I'll read to colleagues what it says.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Will we all get a copy of that? So we can follow along with you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll be glad to wait. It's $50,000. But you'll see for what.
What we're about to discuss.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes,
do you mind if I make a quick procedural comment?
you may.
If colleagues wish to present additional amendments, make sure you're ready to go, because this item won't take very long.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, I believe that all of our colleagues now have a sheet of paper and if it
You may
pleases the
proceed.
committee. So this is recommended changes that are in my additional amendment. Increases 3 lines in the Board of Alders budget. I think that's an S3330, travel, additional $10,000. S6615, printing and binding, an additional $10,000. S6694, other contractual services, $30,000. That's an additional $50,000 for that budget. And to pay for that, the administration is proposing to increase expenditure savings by another $50,000. And say when you increase savings, you're decreasing the expenditure, which is why it's in parentheses. If this were color, it would be red. So the $50,000 in more spending is offset by the $50,000 in additional savings. And so this amendment balances. It's recommended from our staff. I encourage colleagues to vote in favor of this additional amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion on this amendment? Any other? Ms. Albertino?
I'm wondering what other contractual services are, Mr. Chair, with that 30,000 came from. But perhaps that was already given in the presentation from OLS. And so I will draw my question and just think about this a little more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion on this item? All for this amendment? Oh, I'm sorry. Madam President? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of this amendment for our office. There are some things that we need to increase. One thing is especially in our travel, when we send our colleagues to get more knowledge at National League of Cities, things are going up, hotels, trains and everything. And for a long time, we were able to keep our travel expense account really low, but right now we've seen over the last, I would say, since the pandemic, possibly, I think right before the pandemic, that things are going up. So I would ask my colleagues to vote in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I also support this amendment as submitted to us. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All for?
Aye.
Nay? Okay. Amended item passes.
Amendment.
Amendment passes. Excuse me.
It's okay.
Any other amendments that would like to be on Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. I would like to make an amendment to eliminate the mayor's proposal position of the Deputy Economic Development Administrator in the amount of $136,409, and to eliminate the position of Acquisition Coordinator in the amount of $89,749, and to take up this at a later date after we get a report from the consultant of what is actually needed for that department. The total for the two positions is $226,158,000 should be applied to the general fund's budget to reduce the millage.
Second.
Thank
Okay, that's seconded. Any discussion? Yes, Alder Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we have at least 4 deputy directors in the economic development currently now. And for this position, I would like to see 1 out of the 4 to take up this position in which that they're trying to create, which will save the city money on that.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just have questions through you to clarify the item. I would like the Alder Smith to just repeat the amount for the DFPD EDA.
136,409.
Thank you. And also to repeat the other position that's proposed to be eliminated.
89,749.
And thank you. What's the title again of that second position?
The acquisition coordinator.
Okay. Mr. Vice Chair, I'll just note for the record that the acquisition, I believe it's the acquisition and disposition coordinator
Yes.
is an existing position. And so there's a person who has that job. It's not a new position. And so if it's not usual for us to eliminate positions that people already have, and you have to lay them off and then they play unemployment. So the positions that in my amendment, eliminated were newly proposed positions. It's easier to eliminate a position that doesn't exist yet. If you eliminate a position that does exist already, there's lots of issues and complications with that. And so I would just make that note. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Alder Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for clarifying. I would like to retract that acquisition coordinator and stick with the new position of the Deputy Economic Development position at 136,409 to be eliminated.
Any other discussion?
I'm confused. Is it on this sheet or this sheet? I'm not following where it's on. It's on this one.
Last
But
one.
the total doesn't match what you're saying, so that's why I'm questioning.
Item 33.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
because I was looking at the one above, so, okay, now I have it. Got it.
You got it?
Yes, thank you.
So we're on the main page, line 33. That's the position that is newly proposed by the mayor as being amended to be removed from this budget. Any other discussion on? Yes, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would have to say I'm not in favor of that amendment, with affordable housing being one of our top priorities of the Board of Alders, and having that position focus on affordable housing and things of that nature. I think it is well needed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam President. Anna Shasta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. I actually support this amendment. It's actually the one reason why I couldn't support this entire budget. It's the one item, which is number 33, with the Economic Development Administrator, Deputy Administrator for Residential Development, that I think we need to hold off on, as I agree with my colleague who read the amendment, that a consultant was hired, with general fund money. And I feel that in order for us to make a good decision, we should wait for that consultant's report to come out before we commit to some of these positions, particularly this one. And there are, we saw that someone is resigning. Maybe we could just wait a little bit longer before we jump to filling these positions. And I agree that it should be applied to the general fund budget to decrease the mill rate. I mean, we saw a lot of, these are some big changes. And while I agree with President Walker Myers that yes, we have development, affordable housing, a lot going on in our city, I think waiting till October for a report is not going to hurt us. If anything, it makes us, I think, better legislators in the sense that we get the full picture and a better full understanding of where we need to spend. Because what happens if the report states something else? What do we do at that point? What if the report says, oh, you don't need a deputy administrator, you actually need a blah, 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 whatever, XYZ. What do we do at that point? So unless we wait for this report to come out, we really don't know what is needed. And no one really asked the director even of LCI who right now looks over this housing, and it was actually in a New Haven Register. I don't even have to quote anything. She wasn't even asked about this department. Where is it? Samuel declined to talk about splitting out the housing development function, saying it wasn't my idea and I had nothing to do with it. For me, that is something that speaks very loudly that we should, somewhat hold off on making this decision right now. It doesn't mean that we're not going to support this position, but just come back to us after this report is done. I mean, we've approved positions mid-year. I mean, this report, I believe, is due at sometime in October. I mean, it could be even something that they could come back to us for the next budget season. But right now, I feel that we really need to be thoughtful and responsible and wait for this consultant to give us their report. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Santana?
Thank you. One of the questions that I have is this: the Economic Development Administration, is he special funds? Can someone clarify that?
General.
Okay.
General.
General funds. So, okay, I was made to understand that it was a special fund, so, okay, that's one question. And I was also made to understand that the prime position of this individual will be doing bringing back a coordinated effort on of what his challenge is, as the position that he was hired as a consultant to do was not on positions. They were basically on running a program that could support staffing issues as they go out to do their job. That's what his job was hired to do. It is not to come back and say, we need this or we need that many positions, this many positions. So I just want to make it clear, his survey of his objective, let me put it that way, is to come back and tell us what programs are available for us to use, not staffing positions. So that isn't on the table for discussion for that. I also agree that I had the same question about this economic administrator position as well. I said, why can't we hire this person mid-year or hold off and hire him next year? You know, I come from a banking position in outside of public. So when I look at a position, we can hire anybody at any time, as long as the need is there. I don't know if that's that easy when you're not in outside of the public institutions, which don't have that authority. So my colleague suggested that we can hire somebody mid-year, and they've done it. I don't remember that happening, so I wasn't on the finance committee before, so I'm asking these questions because I'm trying to ascertain how I feel about that.
Everyone set?
Yes, all set, thank you.
Alder Morrison?
Thank you. I'm not in support of this amendment because when I look at this position on line 33, my understanding that this position is the position that's going to be over development within our wards, right? Mm-hmm. I live in a ward that is being developed and that has had things go very well and things that have not gone well because we didn't have someone to totally focus in on this this particular position, that particular work. And the other piece of it, when I think about lowering the mill rate, $136,000 is not going to lower the mill rate because the mill rate has to be well over $600,000 or something like that. So I don't see how taking this position away is going to affect the overall budget, because we're not gonna be able to, lower the mill rate. I would love to, but, I don't see that lowering the mill rate, and the need is now. So, thank you.
So I'm gonna put on my hat again as chair of the committee, because our vice chair has to excuse himself for a moment. Next on the queue is President Walker Myers, followed by Alder Smith, Alder Hurt, and I'm on the agenda as well. Okay, well, hold on. Let me just take a moment to establish what the queue is. I'm actually gonna go with people who haven't spoken yet, which is Robert's rules of doing it, and then to the people who want to speak for a second time. Okay? So, everybody who wants to speak, raise your hand again. I'm gonna put myself at the end, because even though I haven't spoken this item yet, I have spoken more than anybody else so far this evening. So the queue will be Alder Furlow, Alder Hurt, Alder Walker Myers, Alder Honda Smith, Alder Festa, and then Alder Marchand. Alder Furlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really trying to get my head around the logistics of the amendment. And so it seems that it's a bit more than just eliminating a position, but it's calling for the cessation of the organization of a department. Because this position is not going to just be working by itself, but there's others in LCI that are going to be moving over. And so we have approved the special funds positions that aren't part of this, but they're in our budget, that are the inspectors. And so we have our LCI department that is established with its director and deputy director. We have this new department that we are now discussing for residential development that will have a deputy director and staff. So I just want to make sure that what we're saying then is that this department is not going to be organized, nor the people move over to this department to work, because I'm certain, I mean, if we say, well, there's not going to be a deputy director, then maybe they'll report to the coordinator. And so, then bring the deputy director on afterwards. So it seems that we're saying, or those that are making this amendment, we don't want this department organized. Additionally, I don't know that we have the authority by policy, perhaps, but I'm just pushing back against that a bit. I don't know that we have the authority by policy to sequester a position till mid-year. I think that our authority would be either to approve it, its reclassification of a department or reorganization of a department, or to eliminate. Now that's something that maybe would be for discussion, but I'm just saying that to just eliminate this one department for a cost savings of $136,000 without addressing the actual office that's going to be established, I don't think it's a complete amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Alder Furlow. And of course, the proponents for the amendment should address those concerns when the queue comes around to that, for sure. Alder Hurt, and then Alder Walker Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not in support of this amendment. I agree with my colleague from the 22nd Ward that with all the new development that's going on in our communities, we're going to need someone that's going to be able to handle just that development. And creating this department, this position as the deputy administrator for the residential development will be the ideal person to make sure there's checks and balances and there's some accountability. So I'm not in support of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Hurt. Alder Markmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate, I'm not in support of this amendment and just go a little bit further because the consultant that we are referencing, we all received a copy of what they will be looking at for the department. The city hire consultants all the time to look at certain things while departments are actually running that we don't even know about because it's under a certain amount of money. So they could be having someone being consultant for the mayor's office right now, we don't know. We cannot wait to have someone totally focused on affordable housing when buildings are going up every day in this city and absent affordable housing. And we have a whole bunch of people in our community that need it. And I know we say October is not far, but tell that to somebody that's actually looking for a place to go. And even though one might not be built by October, but this person get into the position, they should hit the ground running because it's an important need in the city. And I just don't think it's responsible to wait. Listen, we're the legislative body. We have a lot of different opportunities to change a lot of different things all different times. And we've done that in the past, but I think this is a pressing need that we need to act on now. So I'm not in support of eliminating that position out of the technical amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Honda Smith.
Thank you. Let me be a little clear. I'm asking to eliminate the new position due to the fact that we have 4 other deputies that is in economic development. I'm pretty sure out of the 4 that is currently working, yes, we do need affordable housing. I don't disagree with any of my colleagues here, but I don't believe in throwing money away when we have 4 people that's in economic development that is currently doing the work. I remember working for the city, working 5 jobs. And I'm pretty sure that they have people that are capable, that is well experienced to work with these people that are doing the affordable housing. All I'm saying is that we don't need to add another deputy director to the department when you can use what you have. It's a cost savings. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Hank Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's back up a little bit because right now, currently, LCI overlooks all of this. Let's remember what was discussed at our meeting with the departmental meetings. We already have someone that overlooks the housing development, affordable housing within LCI, so we're not taking anything away. All we're asking, I think, at least what I'm asking or agreeing with in this amendment is that we keep things status quo for now without hiring this deputy director. And this has, and no one's asking to sequester anything. We have, the administration has found funding in the past for positions that have come before us mid-year. I mean, we voted on transfers and stuff all the time. So that's why I'm saying mid-year to clarify for Alder Santana. And that's if there's money that can be transferred. Not asking to sequester this position either, because all I'm saying is let's keep things status quo until this report comes out. I think my colleague from the 30th Ward pretty much said what else I would have said. But let's remember that currently LCI does overlook. We have a director in LCI that overlooks the development, housing development and affordability. So we don't have, and all the inspections are still going to continue. It's not like anything is gonna change from what we do. So folks will still be looking for affordable housing and still have someone that will be attentive to them. We also, I guess it's just residential development department and staff, keeping it as status quo. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, I want to acknowledge that Alder Brian Lee is attending. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm speaking in opposition to this amendment. I think it's important to just disentangle a few things. The amendment before us would eliminate the proposal to create a new deputy position in the Economic Development Administration, and that a huge part of that job would be to attend to possible residential development. Right now, residential development happens not just in LC. The city staff who are involved in residential developments are in different places in the city's organization, not just LCI, but some of it's LCI. Right, that those affordable housing units built on Thompson Street, that was LCI that worked with Habitat for Humanity to make those things happen, right? But there's other big projects that are built that are residential in nature that other development officers within the EDA have gotten involved in and helped to broker those things, like the Beacon development, for example. So affordable housing, residential development is something that a variety of different city staff are involved in a variety of ways. The proposal is to create a deputy whose principal focus would be on that area of activity, which is to try to attract and work with developers who are going to build more housing units and to really help foster folks to take advantage of the inclusionary zoning ordinance and to look for bridge and gap funding that is necessary and other incentives that make affordable housing possible. So it's actually a substantial amount of work involving lots of agencies, involving lots of funding streams. And I think it actually makes sense to have a deputy level person at EDA whose main job is to be on top of that. Because right now it's kind of dispersed among different parts of the EDA, including LCI. So the proposal here is to say, we're going to create a deputy general funded position, always has been. I don't know why folks would be confused about it. It's always been generally funded as proposed. And that will be where that activity is overseen in a centralized, driven way. Of course, is it logistically possible for us to say no now and for the administration to come back to us halfway through the year and propose a reorganization or create a new position and look for transfers to pay for it? It's possible. It's also possible for us to say no to them now and for them to come back next year with the same proposal. So those things are definitely technically possible. I don't think it's the right thing to do. And so I'm speaking in opposition to the amendment as proposed. The other thing I would say is that I think many of us listened carefully to the presentation from our Economic Development Administration and the city, the mayor's chief of staff in one of our meetings about this study that was commissioned and that Mr. Brennan was hired to conduct. And my recollection of that presentation is that the mandate of that study is to look at the enforcement activity of LCI, which is proposed to stay right where it is under an executive director with the same salary, same range, same everything as last year. Well, the salary is a little bit different because she also gets an increase just like anybody else does. So, and that's a massive set of activities that somebody in a position of authority needs to be in charge of, and that would remain the executive director of LCI. But that director would no longer have in her portfolio activities that are related to the development of new units, which is not most of what LCI does. It's actually a small part of what LCI does. Most residential developments, the city staff working on them are not in LCI, they're in the EDA. Although some of them are dealt with by LCI, right? I paid close attention to this. I sit on the city plan commission. I see all these staff people are involved. And so I don't think the study that's going to be conducted, I think it could be very helpful to us, but it's not actually material to the organizational questions that are being posed in this budget. It's focused on all the functions that will remain in LCI. So set aside that study, it's not relevant. The question is, do we think we should have that deputy EDA person? And I think it makes sense that we should. And so for that reason, I think we should not vote in favor of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Right. Any other comments? Any other comments? Yes, Alder Festa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't disagree with our chair of this committee. So I'm going to put it this way. When, there was a parks report done, and a lot of the jobs that were presented to us were from that report. Even though we didn't see it, we had to ask for it, or at least I asked for it. But a lot of those positions were from what an outside consultant recommended, and they were here, and we voted on them this evening. So the same thing is going to happen with this consultant. They're going to say, here's the report, and based on that report, departments are going to make decisions on whether or not we need X personnel or not personnel, whether that report indicates it or not. Because someone is going to take that report and say, it looks like we have a problem here, here, or here, so we need to address those problems with XYZ positions. And that's all I'm saying, is that, we have, yes, consultants that come in, they don't have to come before us. I think we should get copies of those reports to make us even better legislators, because we'll get better understanding of how these departments actually work kind of in the background. And that's something we could discuss at a later date and not tonight, but I just wanted to make that point that some of these positions that we are voting on this evening, or have voted on this evening, also come from reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this amendment? Anybody else? Okay, all for this amendment?
Aye.
All for, against the amendment?
No.
Nay.
Nay.
Oh, I'm a yay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, sorry.
Any abstention? Okay, this amendment has failed.
Just a point of clarification, I just want to make sure my vote was heard, that I am in favor of this amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
So noted. Did you get that down? Thank you so much. Any further amendments for tonight? Yes, Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to make a policy amendment regarding all new special fund positions in LCI not be filled until the consultant's report is complete and discussed with the Board of Alders.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Yes, Alder Festa.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason for this is because, again, it stems down to these are special fund positions. And even though they are special fund positions, we should hold off on hiring until we get a better idea of what everything we just discussed, really. We have to remember too that special funds does have an impact on the general fund. There are some positions that in these departments that are general fund positions, in LCI as well. These particular funds can wait for us to hire. They do roll over, it's my understanding. I looked into the Homestead Act, et cetera, so we won't lose this funding. We should really point to where everything is needed that we just discussed with the deputy director position. And again, it's just holding off on hiring until the consultant's report is complete. And again, it has nothing to do with, wanting to have more inspectors, because we heard that they are needed, but where exactly are they needed? And I'll point out again to the wonderful New Haven Register article that came out where the director of LCI says it's not about them being overworked, it's about them being an efficient and maximum capacity. There's a lot of arguments saying that we need more administrators versus inspectors, but the administrators need to learn the VOC, or the whole team needs to learn VOC, or we need a better program for VOC. And once that's implemented, we might need actually more inspectors versus administrators. So what is it? Do we need more administrators and less inspectors, or do we need more inspectors and less administrators? It's still up in the air. And I feel that this is where the consultant is going to help us make those decisions as to what we need to do with these departments. This is a big deal. We don't want to make the same mistake that we made with merging DPW with parks. And that's what we're doing here. We're merging, economic development with some of LCI's responsibilities. And we have to be thoughtful. If a consultant was hired, why not wait for this consultant's report to come out? I guess it's just the way my brain works. I don't know. But I just feel that we'll have better direction once this report comes out and comes to us for a look at. I think, again, it should be discussed with us as well. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Point of clarification, Mr. Vice Chair, could we just hear what the amendment was again?
Can you repeat it, please?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a policy amendment regarding all new special fund positions in LCI not to be filled until the consultant's report is complete and discussed with the Board of Alders.
Madam President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would have to not be in support of this policy amendment because if the same director that we just referenced of LCI come to us, who is in charge of the department, and feel like a position is really needed, why would we then say no, wait for the report? Obviously, the director will be working with the person creating a report. So for that reason right there, I just think that the way my brain works, that is not making sense to me. So I am not in favor of that policy amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion? Any other discussion? Hello?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm thinking very hard because I understand the point. But because of, so I'm not able to support this because of the number of people that have come and the houses that I've been to throughout the city that are not being inspected. Years and mold in houses, mice, and they're not getting the inspection that they need. We need these inspectors immediately. This is special funds. October, I know they don't need all these inspectors, then in our next budget, we'll figure this out. But I can testify that we need boots on the ground inspecting these homes. We've had fires that could have been prevented if there were inspectors, if these houses were inspected. We've gone through this lead thing that had us all up that may have been prevented if we had inspectors. I understand the issue that we're having with the BoA, and I am confident that the administration is intelligent enough to figure out how to get that done so that it will minimize the amount of paperwork that the administrators are doing. But we've heard testimony after testimony, get more boots on the ground and get these houses inspected. And so for that reason, though I really understand the point, I feel that we need to move forward with this right away. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion on this proposed? Any other discussion? Yes, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm speaking in opposition to this policy amendment, and I encourage colleagues to vote no. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of this amendment?
Aye.
All against this amendment? Say nay.
Nay.
Okay, any abstentions? Okay, this has failed. Any other new amendments to be proposed on the floor? Yes, Alder Festa.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to ask for this, but I'm going to, and you can correct me if it's not. But I would like to make a policy amendment that any additional funded that is coming to New Haven from the state be applied to the general fund for mill rate reduction. We don't know what the amount is just yet.
That's a motion. Anybody going to second that motion?
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Again, we don't have the amount of money, but I feel that it's important for us to show the residents that we're looking at everything, and any additional state funding that is extra that we weren't counting on should go towards decreasing the mill rate.
Oh, let me yield first to the chair.
I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think the sentiment behind this amendment is commendable, but we have no idea what that is, and it's likely designated for certain purposes. I think that would render this policy amendment moot in a variety of circumstances. I think it's ill-advised to pass it at this time, and I encourage colleagues to vote no. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also am not able to support this, though I think it's an excellent idea because we do want to move that mill rate, but I doubt that the state is going to give us miscellaneous funds to apply as we want, that it will have a certain designation for those funds. And so I prefer that we wait to see what's going to happen or how those funds are going to be assigned to us before we make that decision. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Alderman President.
Mr. Chair, I will retract this amendment until we have further information. And once we know how much more money we are getting and where it's allotted, I can always present it on the floor during our second reading. Thank you.
Okay. Any other amendments to be put on this? Yes, Alderman President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This one is actually probably most of you have heard it before in regard to ordinance, appropriating ordinance number 3, section 6, refunding bonds. And it's basically just changing the language from the current language is be it further ordained by the New Haven Board of Alders acting pursuant to the due authorization of the general statutes and special acts of the state of Connecticut that general obligation refunding bonds of the city, the refunding bonds are hereby authorized to be issued from time to time in such principal amounts as shall be determined by the mayor and controller to be in the best interest of the city for the purpose of refunding all or any portion of the city's general obligation bonds outstanding, the refunded bonds to achieve net present value savings or to restructure debt service payments. And basically the change would be.
Somebody second this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
I was still, okay.
Just further discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
And it's basically just, the change would be removed or to restructure debt service payments from the end of the sentence.
Any other, Madam President?
Oh, and the discussion, do you want me to, oh.
No.
I mean, the discussion is basically to provide full transparency of the process. It is not against anyone on this board who represents the board during the process of bonding. And I know, you know, it's the same thing every year. This is not a personal thing. This is something for transparency purposes. I know that we vote in the folks that represent us with the controller and the budget director and the mayor's office, but I feel that this is something that the public needs to be aware of. This all came about when there was that whole, what was it, toss and turn or toss, whatever it was a few years ago. So this rarely comes before us, but when it does, we can call for a special meeting as a group to discuss it and often get public feedback as well. That's it. It's just for full transparency, nothing else. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm gonna say what I say every single year. I am in opposition of this, because you said it for me. You elect the people that represent us on that body. It doesn't happen often. And, you know, transparency is a great word. That's like a buzzword to me. We are very transparent. Nothing is being hidden. We're elected to represent the body when we handle that business. And that's what we're going to continue to do. And I feel like every time it came up, you've done a good job. And we actually explain when asked what happens. So I don't understand why every single year for the last, that I can remember, about 12, that we come up and we talk about this every time since it's been enacted. I actually think this should be the last year we should be talking about that. Thank you, the Vice Chair.
I have to be consistent.
I know you have to be consistent.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I also am in opposition to this, not because I'm on the committee, but because of the process. So this was set in place so that we can catch interest rates. The process that's being proposed would require a public hearing and then a full vote, of the Board of Alders, which would delay the process. If this was anything else, if it was about anything else then other than delaying the process, then I would support it. But there's a process in place so that we can get this done quickly and lock into those interest rates, which is the whole reason why we've established this in the beginning. And this is something that the administration has also been in favor of and asked us to do. This is a savings for our city. And we are elected to save money for our city and make decisions sometimes that does not include a public hearing. We have different administrative committees that make those decisions. And so I'm opposed to this amendment, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I just want to say, I'm against this. We have made decisions and the companies that advise us are within hours of making a decision on an interest rate. The amount of money that we borrow, a half a point is a big savings. And sometimes it's a matter of hours that we have to sign this piece of paper. So that's why I'm against it. We have saved the city a lot of money on these quick decisions because they have to be done that quick. The market fluctuates so much that I agree with my colleague, it takes too long, the other process. So I stand against this. Any other discussion? All for this amendment?
Aye.
All against this amendment? Nay.
Nay.
This amendment has failed. We need to take a slight recess for the chair to act on something, so 10 minutes?
Let's say 5.
5 minutes, okay. 5-minute break.
And
Oh, oh, yeah, the guy giving me that 25% Nice.
Are you gonna do order for the menu or? Okay.
So it's a scrivener's error that we worked out.
What is it? Oh. Thank you for catching it. And make the coffee. It's coming back.
You want me to get it for you? How do you take it?
You know what? Thank you.
Oh, I'm right here.
My whole life.
Oh, really?
It used to be 3 cups a day.
I would have bought you a cup. Don't worry about it.
We are back in session. Waiting for the recording.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody take their seats, please.
I thought I could
The
stand
meeting is back in session. Mr. Chair, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Turns out I have an additional amendment to make. I move an additional amendment.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. There was kind of a large-scale scrivener's error in one of our submissions, which pertains to item 4 in our agenda, appropriating ordinance number 4, an ordinance authorizing issuance of general obligation tax anticipation notes and our general obligation grant anticipation notes. That order, as it was originally submitted, called for $0. And the actual request is to authorization up to $80 million in anticipation notes. And so the motion is to change it from 0 to 80 million. That is the motion. And just to remind colleagues, these anticipation notes, it's short-term lending that periodically the city engages in order to deal with the fact that our expenses sometimes are incurred faster than our cash flow can provide funding for. And so it's short-term loans that we do if we have a cash crunch early on in the fiscal year, typically, before we get all the taxes collected, for example. And so we do this every year, and sometimes we don't need to do it. But the authorization is important to have so that we're ready to go with that if the need arises. And it was just a problem with the original submission that needs to be corrected this evening. I recommend colleagues to approve the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Any other discussion on this? Yes, all the press.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I guess it's more of a question. What is the normal amount that has been in there in the past? Is this approximately the same amount? Just out of curiosity.
Yes, it's in the same ballpark.
Okay, so it's money that we've always had in there and it's just as a backup.
No, it's authorizations that we've always had in there.
And that's what I meant.
And we've often not needed it.
Correct, but it's
But we
there.
need the authorization.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the
Any other
clarification.
discussion on this amendment? All in favor of this amendment, say yay.
Yay.
Against, nay. Any extension? Okay, this amended item has passed. This amendment has passed. Any further amendments?
I'm done.
Anybody else? No? Discussion on the items that have been amended. Yes, Chairman Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to speak on these items as amended. This is the chance to talk about the budget and not just the amendment. So I think in many ways this budget that was presented to us is an optimistic budget. And I think there's reason for optimism. Our city is growing in population. There's a ton of investment happening in our city. The grand list is growing, not always in all the ways that we would want, but certainly in some of the ways that we want. But I think we need to be cautious. And that's why I think we pass these amendments to curtail some of the additional spending, because there's some things that are coming up that we need to be mindful of. One, the ARPA spending, the ARPA funds are going to dry up, but they need to be spent by the end of 2026 anyway. But we are reallocating a bunch of ARPA funds from unfinished projects to the revenue for this next fiscal year's general fund budget. Next year, we won't be able to do that because that money will be gone. So next year, that's like more than $11 million of revenue that we won't have from ARPA anymore. That's a big deal. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that we've benefited fiscally from having a very large number of vacant positions for several years now, for all sorts of reasons that we've talked about at many meetings. Well, we've addressed many of those reasons, and I think it's reasonable to expect that the number of vacant positions is going to decrease. And that means that the vacancy savings will also decrease. And those vacancy savings have been one of the contributing factors to the positive fund balances that we've had the last several years. So that means that we might find ourselves back in a position of more difficult, challenging budgets like what we saw before, so what we saw in 2020 and before. So I think that's part of the reason that I felt that it was important to show some restraint on the creation of new positions and on additional spending. But I think overall, our budget is a strong one, and it makes investments in areas of priority for our city and for this board. Public safety, investments in our parks, investments in our youth, investments in the development of additional housing, investments in our inspection regimen so that we can actually take a better, make sure that landlords are taking better care of the existing units that we do have. I heard very clearly what our majority leader said about what we see in some of the houses that people live in now, some of the units that people live in now. It's unacceptable for people in the city to live in those kinds of conditions. And so this budget, in a number of ways, makes investments in housing, in inspection, and in these other services. And at the end of the day, although all of our residents would likely say we want lower taxes, most of our residents also say we want better services. And we want to deliver better services for our residents. And so I think that this budget, as amended, addresses those important needs. And I encourage my colleagues to vote yes, to recommend favorably this budget in the form of these 6 items to our Board of Alders colleagues. We'll have a chance to vote on the 28th of May. So thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion on the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. As always, I'm in support of this budget of notes we made. It's always a tough decision. It's a very tough decision to decide what comes in, what stays out, what jobs are created, what services will be provided, what services will not be provided. It's very difficult. We live in a city that I believe originally were blue-collar workers, factory workers. And so when we say that our mill rate is 38 plus, though it's lower than Hamden, lower than some of our other surrounding cities, comparable to Meriden, it's not the same residents, so it's not really apples to apples. So when you look at some of our other towns that have white-collar residents, it's a little bit different. And so we all feel the effect of a mill rate increase. I don't own a house here, I rent. For those that will talk about me in the independent or whatever, I rent. But guess what? My rent's going up this year. Mm-hmm. And so I'm gonna feel it. And it's hard enough to pay what I'm paying now. When my father passed away, I lost half my income. Because he was living with me. And so now I'm trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And now with the rent increase, it circles back around again. So we all feel it. But still, with all that being done, I still support this amendment because these are the services that we need to provide for our residents. I think that we've done it with tremendous care, with tremendous thought, weighing out what we've heard from the public. And I think that we are moving in the right direction. And I say that very carefully because I've thought about this very deep. My background originally is in, well, besides theology, before that it was accounting, and so I understand numbers. I also want to add, Mr. Chair, if I may, that a no vote on this means a yes vote on the mayor's original budget. And that's what we're deliberating today. We've made amendments to the mayor's proposed budget. And so when we vote yes on this, we're voting yes to what we have amended. A no vote on this would mean that we are supporting what the mayor had originally proposed to us. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Vice Chair.
All the chairs.
Alderman Morrison.
Yes, thank you. I am in support of this amended budget. And thank you to the chair for the large print because it really allows you to see the picture of the direction in which the city is going in. We're talking about, cameras. We're talking about, righting the wrongs that happened around our parks. We're talking about all these different things happening. Our police force is constantly growing. And we're, like a puzzle, we're putting the pieces together to be able to help all people. We always have to remember this is New Haven. So to get services in New Haven, you don't always have to live in New Haven, as we see, right? People come here because we take care of people. And we don't get extra money from the state or anything like that because we're helping others. But that's what we are. We are a community that loves all people. And so I'm, again, very in support of the direction that we are positioning New Haven to go in. As my colleague from the 27th Ward said, our community is growing. And if we don't grow with it, then we're gonna cause harm to our community as a whole. So thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Mr. Chair. I get what our majority leader mentioned regarding this budget. And if we don't support it, it means we support the mayor's budget. But right now, I need to digest everything that we discussed this evening. So as much as I do agree and disagree with, that philosophy, I think right now I'm not prepared to make a decision on this budget. That one department with separating LCI is really getting to me. Why? Because I want everything you all want. I love this city. This is my city. I get emotional now. I want it the way it is. I don't want people to leave. The diversity of this city is what makes it beautiful. It's what I believe in. It's my values. And I want to make sure that we do this right, for the right reasons, for the people, for the residents of this city. We all get the calls of, I need LCI to come in and look at my apartment, and you do whatever you can to get them there. I need, whatever. You get the calls of, I want to stay in my house that we built 70 years ago. We've been living in this city 70 years. But if you continue to raise taxes, I can't stay. But aren't those the people we want to stay? I'm glad we're building all this development for affordable housing. It's needed. You know what that means? It means that people want to come to our cities. But we already know it's a great city. we have to remember those constituents and those residents that have been here for a long time, who are struggling, and we need to help them in every way possible. So based on the conversations that we had tonight, based on what we discussed, I need to digest all of this. So I'm not ready to support this budget just yet because of just that. I believe in everything that it literally is the only thing that is stopping me from supporting it. We heard from parks. And I love our parks. You all have heard me say that, so I'm glad we're getting additional support for our parks. Safety is a big factor too. And in order to show our officers that growth is possible in our police department, there's positions there that will show them that we support them. But again, I need to digest all of this. So I hope you all understand if I vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of this amended budget because I think every single year we vote on the budget, every time we actually take a lot of consideration for our residents. We think about the taxes. We think about the people that need the services. We think about everything. Look, it's difficult. It's difficult living in New Haven because we have a lot of property that's untaxed, and we all know it, right? And I feel like this board takes every opportunity to address all the challenges that we have before us in the city. When we talk about raising taxes, of course we don't want taxes to go up. Who does? We think about those residents that been here the 70 years, right? So we're always constantly trying to think outside the box, and it's not one cookie cutter way to look at the picture. And I'm optimistic because I believe that even though we won't have the ARPA money, and we see all these things in front of us, but it's opportunities. Like, we have to start thinking right now, and I don't get the opportunity to talk during the budget deliberations because I'm up there trying to make sure everything goes well. So I'm gonna say what I want to say today. We have an opportunity to try to work on a relationship with the university because we need them to give us more money. It's just the reality, right? So we got some more money, and that was great. But I want everybody to understand that we can't stop there. Those conversations need to start. They're about to start because we're going to be coming up where that money's going to be going to, right? So if we're really talking about how we care about everybody in the city and making sure everybody is taken care of, we have to start thinking outside the box and stop looking at it. I don't know the analogy, so I'm not going to try to say it, the forest or the trees or something like that. But I actually think we have to start thinking outside the box. We looked at this budget. We said, what do we really need now for the residents? What could we wait for? We can put a little bit here. Of course, we want to do everything. We don't have the money. We don't. So we have to start thinking along those lines. And I'm optimistic because I think we're going to get it. If we all stick together and figure out how to do it together, we're going to get it. So that's all I have to say because I won't be able to say nothing when we take the final vote. Thank you.
Santan, Alder Santan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair. I want to say that I do support the budget the way it is. And I will tell you why. I do not support the budget the way it was before. I appreciate the time and effort that everyone put in to lower the tax increase. That's my biggest downfall every year. I am a taxpayer, I'm a homeowner, and I know what a mill rate increase for me is. And so it's, I have to work till I'm 80 in order to retire. So this is reality of life for me. It's not for everyone. So what I'm saying is I had long discussions mainly about LCI. Our constituents want results. That has not been happening in LCI. There's no tracking mechanism. And I am hoping to God that this new program or whatever it is that we purchase will give us the tools that are desperately needed by LCI, the inspectors as they go out, and to track it. And constituents can then see that city is really taking their initiatives, what they asked for us to do as as alders in our communities. They want a nice community. We don't want to see boarded up homes. We want something to happen with them. But unless we have a tracking mechanism in place, it won't happen. And constituents, and the next time we have a budget, I'm gonna say no to LCI. Because if I don't see improvements, that's the way it's gonna go. So I'm hoping that in addition to these positions, that we do have a program that's in place that can track everything for us. And so that is the reason why I am supporting it, because I believe that with they go both hand in hand. And I think our constituents asked us loud and clear that they needed more parks people to actually do the boots on the ground work. And I am so thankful that we're getting those positions. We don't always need high-level job for deputies and other personnel. But we do need the worker bees. And a lot of times we neglect and we don't rationalize their characteristics and what they do to make a department well-maintained and well-functioning. Because every position in a department is important, and we don't value them all the same. So I hope that I can support these positions and hopefully go and make a good budget for this year, and hopefully next year we'll do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Conda Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's kind of difficult for me. I support some of this budget, but the one that I don't support is adding an extra deputy. I lived in this city all of my life. I call myself New Haven. Worked in the city for over 30 years. I've seen residents of the city, some get jobs, and I've seen many have not received any of these city jobs. Our taxes are going up. I have a 100-year-old lady that's on my block, put her house up for sale because she can't afford to pay her taxes when her house is paid for, just like mine. I worked to pay my house off when I retired. I can't afford these taxes. We talk about affordable housing. Yes, we see all of these housings going up. I think my ward has the most housing complexes that's in there. I have 5 housing complexes that's supposed to be affordable. But when you have people that live in there saying they're paying $2,000 to live in the projects, what's affordable about that? There's nothing affordable about it. But yet, as the taxes go up, their rent, as majority leaders said, increases. We're gonna have more homeless people on the street than people living in these homes, because they're not gonna be able to afford to live there because of increases beyond their control. So this is why I agree with some, but if we can continue to put people that live in this city in positions to be able to afford to live, then I will support the whole thing. But as of right now, I'm gonna think about this a little bit more to see where I wanna go with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Conda?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm new to this finance committee this year, and
I just want to say it was an honor being there. A lot of people don't see the commitment and the hard work that the people on this committee do, the caring and the concern they have for this city. It's remarkable, and I'm proud to be a part of it. The other thing is that I look at the Finance Committee as the starting point, the vehicle, to say yes to a budget. But I think the real work happens after the budget is passed and the work happens in the departments. That's where you're gonna see the real results from a budget, from the department. So again, I support this budget, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of results in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hurd?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the chair, I want to I'm in support of this amended budget. I do want to take the opportunity to thank each of you, my colleagues on this committee, for the work that we put in and all of what we take to heart for our city. I'm going to be very quick. If not now, when? Because I have constituents in my ward that need services. As my colleague on 27th Ward, my rent went up this year too. And sometimes I find myself in the position of what they say, robbing Peter to pay Paul, just to keep a roof over my head, making decisions on other things that's necessary for my life. But with these services, I understand now what my constituents are going through. I feel their pain. And the budget we have in place at this present time will help a lot of my constituents. So I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this amended budget.
Thank you. Hannah?
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, for the hard work on the budget. I am in support of the budget as amended, and I too am a property owner, and my taxes have gone up a hell of a lot, right? It's a struggle for all of us. I've gone up. Struggle for all of us. We know that. I think it's now, I agree with President Walker Myers about having that conversation with Yale University. We have to start now, because that pilot ends in another year or so. So it's important that we start that conversation, right? We act in the best interest of the residents of this city, and sometimes decisions are hard. Not sometimes, they're always hard, but we do our best as a group to support our residents. And yeah, we have to make a tough decision, but we need to support one another and support the hard work that has been done on this budget to help to craft out some semblance of order for our community. So support one another and support the budget as amended, because it's in the best interest of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Phillips?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take a quick opportunity. I want to push back just a little bit, if I may. I didn't mention previously what this budget also recognizes, and I think my colleague from the 27th Ward did mention it. I still haven't learned the numbers, where the alders are. But it also addresses traffic calming. And with Division 0, and that is something that is crucial if we look at the number of pedestrians that have been hit over these years. Our residents have been screaming, please do something about the speeding. And so this is part of that. Also, we have these red light cameras coming in. We're debating on how this is, but we have no say over that because the state said this is how you're gonna do it, take it or leave it. And so if we don't like it, then we'll put pressure on the state at some point to see if we can make some changes on how that's done. But I do want to push back a little bit because speaking for my ward, 73% renters in my ward. And I'm just gonna be clear, the majority of my ward doesn't care about parks. They care about blight, garbage being picked up, the tree bells, the sewers being cleaned, street sweeping. That's what the majority of my ward cares about. Let me be honest, because I wasn't gonna say anything, but I'm gonna say it. I don't like the way this LCI thing was done. I don't like it. But I'm not gonna vote no because I didn't like the process. I've gotta think about the end result. We're gonna have people on the ground that are gonna help us address these problems. Problems that are in not my ward, my neighborhood. I have blighted houses on my neighborhood that I can't get landlords or the property owners to address. With these extra boots on the ground, I'm hoping that I'm going to get help on Fairfield Street and on Party Place and some of the surrounding areas. And so I'm not happy with how this was done, but I'm not gonna vote no on it because I didn't like the process. And I'm not gonna vote no on 33 items because I don't like one. We need this. And so I wanna just take a moment to encourage my colleagues. Let's look at the end result of what this is going to provide for our city. And if we need to talk to the administration about process, then let's do it. And let's have those conversations strong and hard. And let's set some of the records straight. Things that we don't like, then because that's what we can do. But let's not have our residents continue to suffer because we need this extra position. We need LCI concentrating completely on blight. They have shown us that they can't do it with this department together. They can't. And maybe some are going to be mad at me for saying this, but this is where we are. The reality of where we are in the city and the blighted properties speaks for itself. And so my hope is during this next year, we're going to see some incredible changes. And if we don't, then I'll be the first one if I'm on Finance Committee. Well, I will be on Finance Committee the next, maybe not next term. Precursor, I might be running again. But next year on the Finance Committee, if this doesn't work, then I'll be the first one to say, I was wrong. But I think that we should go in this direction. And I also want to push back. A no vote on this is a yes vote, because we only have two. We're either voting yes on the amended version, or it reverts back. If a majority wins, it reverts back to the mayor's proposed budget. That's just how it works. And so, you may not like a line item, but this is where we come into the ability to be able to compromise. I like 31, 32 things on this chart. One thing gives me a little bit of pause, and I'm telling you, I was gonna vote no on this. I was, because I don't like the process. But I'm thinking about the end result. And anything else that's gonna happen in between, then let's work with the administration to make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and make sure that we can move forward together. But that's where I am with this, Mr. Chairs. And once again, I'm supporting this because this is what our city needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Rashad?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And I just wanted to observe that I believe that our majority leader is referring to a consultant process and concerns with how the administration rolled it out and not like our committee process. Just clearly that's the process you're referring to.
Yes, sir. And I failed to mention, if I may, Mr. Chair, that the Corp Council did give us their legal opinion that both the merger or the recreation of this office is within compliance of our city charter, as well as the remerger of parks and of our what we're doing in the Parks Department is also in
Restoration of
compliance.
the Parks Department.
Restoration is in compliance with our city charter.
Great, thank you for that additional information. So I got on the queue to wrap us up. It's the chair's prerogative to do that. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for all of our colleagues on the committee for your dedicated attendance to all the meetings that we've had. I want to thank the city staff, certainly, and Mr. Gormany, who has not totally left us yet, but soon will be 100% in his new role in West Haven. We wish him well. We thank him for his dedicated service to the city and for his working with this committee in particular over these last years. So we're very grateful for that. We, of course, value our support staff, Don Hayden and Lucas, of course. We're glad that colleagues not on the committee have come to multiple meetings, including this meeting tonight. I'm thankful for my vice chair, who played a role that I proposed to him this afternoon, I think at 4:45, and on such short notice was willing to step up and do what I requested. So thanks to all those folks. I'm reflecting on the meeting Monday, and colleagues might remember that I wasn't there. It was the first finance meeting I've missed maybe in a decade, I don't know. I'm pretty darn faithful coming to these meetings. I didn't go to that meeting. Why? Well, because there was a special dinner at Yale, recognizing people who've had long service at the university. I was there because I just completed 25 years as a member of the staff. And it was a great event and it was beautiful. All these folks who've given decades of service to the university and how great their contribution has been. But it also got me thinking about, what about the banquet for all the ways that the cities has contributed to Yale over the many, many years of the institution's existence? And one of the ways that we've contributed to Yale is a de facto subsidy because of Yale's massive tax exemption and the huge hole that it creates in our grant list. Yale is about a quarter of our grant list. It's not quite half of all the exempt property, which is 10 out of $19 billion, 10 billion out of $19, right? The majority of our grant list is tax exempt, right? And half of that exemption is maybe more than 60% is Yale and Yale New Haven. So like the financial implications for our city are enormous. Now, Yale certainly contributes in a variety of ways, and we're glad that the university's here, but I take my comments back to what our president said earlier about really needing Yale to double down in its partnership with us and really talking with us about what that ought to mean. And I would just say that one of the areas that we clearly need huge investment is in our public schools. Now, our budget amendment does not change what the administration has proposed, which is to increase the funding for the Board of Education by $5 million. That's what this budget coming out of committee does. It does not add 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, or $12 million to that total, which 12 was requested by the Board of Education. The amended budget coming out of this committee does not do that. It sticks with the 5s. But I actually think that if the city schools had an additional $12 million, they would have things to do with that money. They wouldn't be having parties, they'd be investing in our classrooms, in our kids, and the kids need it. So for me, I feel that as we develop that conversation with the university in the future, we really ought to be talking about our schools. And we need a game-changing investment well above and beyond what has been made so far. And that's only right, it's only proper, and I hope we can have that conversation in the years ahead. Having said that, I think we've done great work. I encourage colleagues to vote yes on the motion to favorably recommend these items as an amendment to the full Board of Alders. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Any other discussion on this side? Okay, all for the amended budget. So yay.
Yay.
Aye. All right. All nay, all against?
Nay.
Okay, 1 nay. And yes.
The ordinance has to be voted individually.
No, they don't, not at the committee level. They do once we get to the full Board of Alders.
Any abstentions? No. the budget has passed as amended.
I'm voting no.
Nay? Okay. We have two nays. Honda Smith is nay.
And who's the second?
Honda Smith. All right. So as it stands, the amended budget has passed. Any other discussion? Yes?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.